So they're teaching the children that a dog can be a cat. Well, a dog can't be a cat. But that leads back to, I'm a little boy, I can be a little girl. You know, I look at the pride flag. It's about sex. It's about somebody's sexual preference. Why do we have that in the schools?
I was born a girl is a powerful statement, and it's a powerful truth that I'm learning to live in.
We find ourselves in an era where defining the boundaries of freedom has become increasingly challenging. Governments have blurred the line between sensible action and granting its citizens unrestricted freedom. Is starting the life-altering process of hormone therapy for gender transitioning a sensible step for young children still exploring their preferences? I'll be searching for the answers of such questions in Canada. I'll start my journey in Istanbul, whereas my teammates will embark from our London office. Our first stop will be British Columbia. We've just arrived to Toronto, Canada, and we'll be traveling out to Vancouver to meet our characters in British Columbia. There, we will see the current state of gender issues in Canada in a more close sense. The first person I'll be meeting in BC is Kelly. I chose to conduct my first interview with her because she's struggling with detransitioning. And I believe her story is one of the most compelling examples of gender wars in Canada. Hi, Kelly.
Hi, Aaron.
Kelly, your journey is so incredibly unique. Could you please share with us your personal experiences with transitioning? What were some key moments or realizations throughout the process?
It was realizing that I had made these external modifications to my body. My friends who had known me as a woman treated me like a woman who looked like a man. I had the internal, the discomfort, the awkwardness, the stuff that had been going on inside of me that I thought transitioning would fix, didn't fix. You know, I live with a history of childhood sexual exploitation. When I was less than 3 years old, my parents divorced, my mother remarried to a convicted pedophile. So I grew up in that environment, I grew up under that influence. When I was 13 years old, I turned him into the police, and he pled guilty to sexually exploiting a minor in his care. So being seen as a pretty girl, being seen as a woman, being seen as a beautiful woman, I was really uncomfortable with that. He had introduced me to drugs and alcohol at a very young age. When I talked to the counselor about that, and she started asking questions about, you know, well, what was it like in your childhood and stuff like that? Well, of course I was uncomfortable being a girl. I was 5, maybe 6 years old when I developed the false belief that boys didn't get sexually exploited, because I didn't see boys getting sexually exploited. I saw other girls getting sexually exploited, but I wasn't seeing it happening to boys. And in the environment where there were boys around, I saw the fathers protecting their sons from being sexually exploited in that environment. This belief that I would have been better off if I had been born a boy. I just wanted to not be seen sexually. A surgery that I never thought I would look back on. I never thought I would regret it. I never thought that it would be something I would reconsider. I don't think anyone who hates a part of their body as much as I hated my breasts. The discomfort with myself didn't go away with all of the surgeries and the body parts. So I get asked quite a bit, why do I not consider suing the doctors who transitioned me, especially with the surgical complications that I experienced? And It's basically the Canadian legal system is really resistant to allowing people to sue a physician.
Kelly, would you have considered yourself a trans rights activist at any point in the past?
Yes. From 2005 to 2010, I was actively involved with the Vancouver Trans Health Programs Trans Advisory Panel. It's not something I'm proud of, but it is something I did, and I was as blind to everybody else to the complications of those surgeries and just how fundamentally flawed the research was. Like some of the research studies that we were talking about and promoting as, oh, this research shows that this is such a wonderful surgery, like 6 participants. And 2 of them had major complications. So that's a 33% major complication rate. They did not care. As trans rights activists, we did not care that this medical intervention was killing people. I couldn't look at what I had done. I'd encouraged people to transition. I had been like deep in all of it, and it was just like, I've been lying to these people. I had been lying to myself, but the hard part was that in all of the advocacy I'd done, I'd been lying to other people. I was born a girl is a powerful statement, and it's a powerful truth that I'm learning to live in. And being a woman isn't a feeling. It's the reason why most people, if I asked you, what does it feel like to be a man? You might not really have an answer to that question. Because being a man isn't a feeling, it's what you are. Femininity is my birthright. However I am as a woman, I am feminine because I am female, because I was born a girl. And it's time to really embrace and say to young people, you can be a girl however you want to be a girl. You're still a girl. But I talked a lot about openly regretting. I can't sit in this place of looking like a male but understanding that I'm a female. I don't know if I can ever get back to looking like a woman from where I went, but I was at the point of going, I need to try, I need to do something, because if I'm going to be stuck looking like a male for the rest of my life, I want to first attempt to look like a woman again. In December of last year, I was able to find a family doctor who was willing to prescribe estrogen.
When you first started talking about this and, regretting having transitioned, what did that lead to the reactions from, your pro-trans community or your perhaps trans friends, who you had previously been activists together with? Like, how did they react to this news coming from you?
Oh, none of the people that I had been activists with are in my life anymore.
Okay.
They all started leaving 2017. The last one left over this documentary.
Speaking with Kelly has really had a profound impact on me, and hearing her story was really tough. But what hurts the most is how lonely she is now that she's detransitioned, how she feels left alone by her community, only because she made the decision based on what she feels is right.
I'm Emily Duggan, and I'm just trying to protect my kids from social trends and gender ideology.
Well, Emily, thank you so much for having us here in your home today. and you have a very important story to tell, and we're here to listen to you. So you can just start wherever you like, you know. You've been involved in some elections recently. Maybe you can start there. And
Sure. So in 2022, I ran for school board trustee for School District 8 in British Columbia. And that's when I found out what SOGI was. As the election went on in 2022, I became more vocal on my stance on it. I ended up losing that election. In that loss, I turned around and I started a group called Mums Against the Norm. And we decided to dedicate all of our spare time to sharing awareness on what SOGI 123 in our public education system is.
Can you also just, for the viewers, describe what SOGI is in general, and how as a mother, maybe that worries you, what about it worries you in specific? So for the people who don't know about it at all.
SOGI 123 stands for Sexual Orientation, Gender Identity. It is a resource guide that was introduced to the British Columbia public education system by the ARC Foundation out of Vancouver, British Columbia in 2016. It's a resource guide, so it's not a curriculum. And that's a part that people don't quite often understand. In British Columbia, teachers have full autonomy over their classrooms and over the resources that they use. So my child could be, say theoretically, my child could be in grade 1 and have a teacher who uses SOGI resources. And those resources could be anything from a math sheet that says, Johnny and his boyfriend Bob went to the market and bought 7 apples, and they each had 1.5 apples.
Yeah.
How many apples do Johnny and Bob have left over? And it could go as far as showing drag queen story time to the class. And none of this needs to have parental permission or even have the parents be informed. So that's where my concerns as a mom really start to peak. SOGI 123 policy looks like is the student may use the bathroom that they identify with. Now, every employee of that school needs to follow policy. So that means that if a boy feels like he is a girl, that's all that boy needs say, and they may access the girls' bathroom. Our education system right now is really failing our communities. So we're graduating students that can't do basic math, that don't know what continent they live on, that are struggling to read and write properly. And now we have a person in a position of power whose main interest is not academics, but social trends.
In what ways, when you're trying to, do your activism work, and what kind of ways have you been getting pushback?
Oh, any way that you can imagine. On my Rumble page, somebody left a comment on one of my videos saying they know where we live, they know where my husband works, they know where my kids go to school. They even said, this is a threat. If you do not stop Mums Against the Norm now, we will kill you.
Wow.
So my kids are 8 and 5 years old. After we got that threat, I made them sleep in the basement for 3 weeks because I was afraid we were going to get a drive-by shooting on our house or something crazy like that. And it was terrifying. It was terrifying. I've had hate mail from New York.
Yeah.
In the form of a glitter bomb, a rainbow glitter bomb. I had my kids with me in the grocery store, and somebody recognized me and they called me and spat on me in front of my 2 kids. So I had to explain what that word was on the drive home to them. I've had to share with my kids more than I would like to at this age so that they understand why these things are happening to us. People show up to our farm and stand on the other side of my gate and videotape me while screaming at me that I'm a horrible person, I've had people tell me that I should kill myself. I had people tell me that they're afraid of me for just voicing a different opinion. I'm accused of violence all the time for voicing a different opinion. And people ask me, how come I haven't stopped when these things are happening? And my reply is that I've gone so far to stop now would mean that everything that I have done and everything that my family has endured would be for nothing.
Yeah.
And at this stage, it's no longer about me.
Yeah.
What I am doing and what I am saying represents a significant amount of people in British Columbia, and it's about all of them now. I think the more I can engage with people, the more conversations I can spark, the more people I can inspire to have these conversations, the better.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm very grateful for this film because this is just one more step in that direction on creating awareness to keep the conversations going.
Meeting Emily and getting a chance to talk to her made me really empathize with her struggle as a mother to protect her kids. And hearing about the backlash she's receiving in her community, and also the backlash her kids are receiving and the scale of it, makes one really question the state of gender issues here in Canada. Tammy, thank you so much for having us here today in your home. Thank you so much for your hospitality. So you have a very important story to tell as a mother, and you've been going through some hard times with your daughter, and I think your story holds value for the world to know more about. So would you want to tell us what's been happening in your life and your relationship with your daughter?
You know, myself and my daughter had a very good relationship growing up. Around 11, 12, we had a couple traumatic, the family broke apart and there was a divorce. My daughter started experiencing mental health problems, which I took her to many professionals to try and get her help. Our relationship broke down a bit during this time. Yeah, she went off to university in Saskatchewan. Her mental health has progressed into her thinking that she's a boy or a bird or any of these things that they teach at school. The SOGI, which was introduced in 2016, which we were unaware of as parents.
Can you tell us a bit more about the Privacy Act for viewers who are unfamiliar with Canada?
The Privacy Act basically prevents parents from knowing information about their children or being involved with their children's lives. This is included in medical from even age 11. So your child can go to the doctor, get a prescription, and they don't have to tell the parents.
Mm-hmm.
So, and if you ask information about your child, they won't tell you.
Yeah, and it starts from the age of as low as 11.
As low as 11. I don't think there is a set age, but it has, some parents have experienced that.
And this has impacted your whole relationship with your daughter?
Completely.
Mm-hmm.
As a parent, my hands are tied. There is nothing I can do for her whatsoever.
Mm-hmm. So what kind of have you been trying to do, given that you have the Privacy Act here in Canada, in order to, reach out to your daughter?
Well, since she's been at university, we've done some wellness checks on her.
Mm-hmm.
And I was told by the police that I was harassing my daughter and that they would not do any more wellness checks on her. She was 17 at the time. In Saskatchewan, they consider age 15 and 16 an adult. And, you know, if a child doesn't want to go home at that age, they won't make them. That's what I was told. So.
And did you try reaching out to their teacher?
I tried reaching out to the university. I've tried reaching out to the courthouse, to Saskatchewan Mental Health, Ministry of Higher Education, everyone I've reached out to, and no one would tell me anything. The counselor kept pushing me to test my daughter for autism. My daughter is not autistic. I mean, this is something that usually as a child they diagnose with. She had none of the characteristics growing up. All of her problems started after the breakdown of the marriage and with her father. So this counselor kept pushing me, and I said, I am not testing her for autism. She is not autistic. Why are you not looking for what is really wrong with her? You know, there's bipolar that runs in the family. Why are you not doing that? Well, because I believe, because a lot of, I guess, trans children can be autistic. And so that's why she was pushing me to test my daughter.
Your daughter had a scholarship and she was a successful student.
She was in the IB program. So I just think it's outrageous for a counselor too to be suggesting she's autistic. Oh, how did she get into the IB program? And, you know, when we were in, prior to coming to Canada in the UK, she was in private schools in the UK and she skipped a grade, right? So I don't.
How does a society become so divided on an issue? And
that's a good question. I don't know how this happened. You know, I mean, what, 15 years ago, this wouldn't even be a question. Why is this in the schools? Why are they showing inappropriate porn stuff in the schools? I mean, why is that allowed? It's not right on every level. That has nothing to do with trans or LGBTQ. It just shouldn't be in schools for children. They're children. Let kids be kids. Canada is tearing families apart with this gender ideology being shoved down everyone's throats. And it's everywhere, not just in the school system, it's in the healthcare system. Right. You know, even I call for an appointment and the first thing they ask me is what is your pronoun? You know, I have a younger son and there's a list of 10 different genders for a 5-year-old. Is that necessary? I mean, that's outrageous. I am looking at other options, and I'm also considering a move out of Canada because specifically for that reason. I do not want him going through what my daughter has gone through and what they've done to her. My daughter has been brainwashed by our system, you know, by our schools, by the healthcare, by the counselors, all of that. And she hasn't received the care for what she really needed the care for, which was her mental health. She's not trans. I don't believe she is trans. And I don't think that's the message we should be sending to children, that here's some hormones, let's chop off your body if you feel uncomfortable in your body. Most teenagers feel uncomfortable in their body, and you know, that's part of growing up. So do we just give them drugs and chop them up? I mean, I think that that's not a solution. and it's destroying children and it's destroying families.
Speaking with Tammy wasn't easy for me, a single mother with a troubled relationship with her child, and with the current situation around the gender issues in Canada, she has nowhere to turn to for help. After spending some time in British Columbia, we're back in Toronto, and now we're gonna see the state of gender issues in the big city.
I was trying to prepare for my biology course that I was teaching the next year, and it was going to be my first time teaching this. So I ended up listening to a lot of podcasts. I started with Dr. Jeffrey Miller, who's an evolutionary psychologist. It was a long process, I'll say. It took at least a few weeks or months of me slowly tearing my world apart, my first world, and then building my other world up. It's not something that happens overnight. You know, I had been the organizer of the Pride Club at my school, for example. Like I was pretty, I wouldn't call it political at the time. I just thought I was doing what was right, being kind and being inclusive and sort of giving a safe space to those kids who perhaps needed it. I was completely clueless. Okay, well, I knew what kind of environment I was in. I knew if I said anything, I would face repercussions too, just like my old professor had. So I started just sharing articles slowly and almost just not even commenting on the article, just putting out a different worldview. And I remember some of the comments on these articles were like, do you support this? Like what are you saying? Over time, I grew a little bit more courageous, and eventually that led to, in February 2021, this is a few months obviously into me having this evolution, I put on a Facebook group, a private Facebook group for teachers. I wrote that we shouldn't be indoctrinating kids with critical race theory. And then somebody complained. And then the next day at school, I was handed a letter and they told me I was under investigation and they wouldn't tell me why. And then I had to go and see my union and figure out what the reason was. And then I ended up having a whole month of not knowing, you know, what's going on. Are they going to fire me? Are they going to suspend me? You don't know, right? You're going to work every day still, but there's this thing looming over you. Yeah. And one day, a month later, I was in class. They pulled me out of class. They took me into a room with it was a Zoom meeting, and they told me, you are suspended for a week with no pay. Yeah. You cannot come on school grounds. You cannot communicate with anyone, colleagues or parents. I had 4 meetings that night with parents that I ended up having to skip, but I wasn't actually able to communicate with them to say that I had to cancel because I wasn't allowed to communicate with parents. So I have no idea what happened. I felt like that was a huge blow to my reputation just professionally. And then they ended up investigating me again and again and again. I think I've now had 4 investigations by them. They've all been dropped. But it's this thing that just, it's the process is the punishment, right? This is the thing. They sort of make you know that you really have to shut up. And then every single time they drop the investigation, they'd say, they'd give me the warning, right? Be careful, don't post on social media anymore. Don't do this, don't do that, don't do that. Maybe they used to, like 5 years ago, be recruited on a voluntary basis. They'd say, hey, does anybody want to come to this pride thingy and whatever. but slowly it has shifted into, okay, now everybody's got to do it. And now not only do you have to go to this thing, but now we're going to give you all t-shirts, pride t-shirts. So you have to wear the t-shirt now. Oh, and you have to put a pin on that says your pronoun. Oh, and you have to, in your email signature, make sure you have your pronoun there, right? By the way. Oh, and make sure you have the rainbow flag on your door. Oh, and it's never ending because the teachers now are expected to do the thing. So it's like, not only, they can't just sit there and do nothing anymore, or else that will make them a target too. It was an elementary classroom where you've got these flowers, these pronoun flowers. So you give all the students one petal and you tell them, what are your pronouns today? So like once a month or once every few weeks or whatever, maybe just spontaneously because a student has come up to you and changed their pronouns. If one student changes their pronouns, then would you redo the activity with all the kids and you give them a new petal and you see, has anybody, if there's any changes, or you can write the same pronoun as before. And then all of these nice, beautiful flowers are hung up on the bulletin board there in the class for everyone to see. And it's this ritual, right? It's a pronoun ritual.
Yeah, it's a lot of work.
It's a lot of work.
Speaking to Chanel, a former school teacher, about her concerns of sending kids to public schools here in Canada, it really speaks for itself about the current state of the education system here. So we're just outside of Toronto today in Milton, and we're here to speak with Terry. You have some very valuable insights to share with us. You know, you've been doing some activism work for quite some time now, so would you like to tell us about that?
Sure. Well, I'm a mother and a grandmother first most.
Yeah.
I'm a retired correctional officer and a member of Police on Guard. So Police on Guard is a group of active duty and retired law enforcement and military that formed during COVID to stand against the mandates and to stand for the honor and honor the oath that we took to uphold the Charter of Rights and Freedoms. So we were very active during COVID, and it was very difficult to watch what was happening with the children with the lockdowns and not being able to participate in sports. And
Right.
in the fall of 2021, when they started to roll the COVID shot out for the teenagers, we felt we needed to do something to protect the children. So we started Mama Bears. We are a resource center for parents for anything child-related. So we have information on internet safety, gender dysphoria, masking, vaccines, alternative schooling, what's going on in the public schools. We have a free mental health program. We want to encourage parents to question, to stop and think, to not just go along with the narrative. And they don't realize that the danger they're putting their children in by just trusting the experts or trusting the people that are in authority, that they have their child's best interests at heart, because we've seen that that's not the case. So we've got a guide on our website. It's a guide to having an effective meeting with your child's teacher. So it's questions to ask. Go into the classroom, look around, look at the books that they've got. You know, if they're leaning towards gender ideology, they may take the posters down during the interview. So we encourage you, go around, look around the book.
Yeah.
So what books are on the shelves? Because that's the books that your children are going to be read. We've got also tips to ask your child every day when they come home that will lead to, you know, so it's not as something as simple as, oh, did you see any movies at school today? Yes. Well, what was the movie about? Who are the characters? What did they talk about?
Yeah.
Right? Because everything is hidden. Don't presume that because it's a cartoon, that it's child-friendly.
Yes.
Because it's not.
Yeah.
So that's what we want to encourage people.
Are you talking about subliminal messages in cartoons?
Well, you know, it'll be messaging in regards to everybody's inclusive. I just saw one which was very disturbing the other day, where it was all cartoons. So it was a dog wanting to be a cat.
Sure.
So they're teaching the children
Yeah.
that a dog can be a cat. Well, a dog can't be a cat. But that leads back to, I'm a little boy, I can be a little girl. So that's why we're encouraging parents to be involved, to stand up and protect your children. Yeah, and then she wants to go to your hand now, see? There, look at that. I don't have any treats with me. Yeah, you have a lovely little son. Can I give you a card here? It's an information, it's a resource center for parents that we have. Okay. You can check out our website. We need to defend our children. Our children are young and they're very easily impressionable and get confused, and they look to us. You know, I look at the pride flag and I shake my head as why do we have it in school? Because the pride flag isn't about anyone particularly about being inclusive or anti-discriminatory to anybody. It's about sex. It's about somebody's sexual preference. Why do we have that in the schools? Nobody's able to answer that to me. It's all, well, we don't want to be discriminatory. It's not about gay rights. It's about grooming. Gay rights have already been won in the courts. That's over. It's done. There's a group called Gays Against Groomers that are adamantly fighting all of this gender ideology in the schools. Because that's what it is. They're grooming the children. They're trying to normalize sex. And not just sex. They're trying to normalize pedophilia. Because that's what a groomer does. First they get them to accept sex. Then they get them to accept sexual deviance. And so all these kids are being fed like a 4- and 5-year-old. Why do they need to know about sexual conduct? They don't. But then when they are physically sexually abused, they've been so normalized to this, they think there's nothing wrong with it. It's difficult, but we have gained such a wonderful community, and more people are saying, you know what, there's something wrong here.
Yes.
There's something that needs to be done. And the children are the driving force, because everybody, unless you're a pedophile, wants to protect the children.
Of course.
Do you know what the new word is for a pedophile? Because, I mean, pedophile, you know, kind of sends the shivers up somebody's eyes. It's minor attracted person. Mm-hmm. No, they're a pedophile. Mm-hmm. Bottom line, they're a pedophile. There's really no option. We can't stop. Mm-hmm. We couldn't look ourselves in the mirror every morning if we didn't do everything that we possibly could to help save the kids. Mm-hmm. So, yeah, we get people calling us names and everything that's son. But hello, that's reality.
Yeah.
Right? We're big people.
Yeah.
So, you know, everybody's entitled to their opinion. Mm-hmm. And unfortunately, the people that will say that we are terrorists and we're violent, that is not the truth. Mm-hmm. I have been protesting since April of 2020, and I've encountered nothing but wonderful people.
When we were driving through the Rockies, the locals were always warning us to never get between a mama bear and her cubs, and that was all I could think about was when I was talking with Terry and Emily, that these are just mothers trying to protect their cubs, trying to protect their children from what they perceive as threats. While speaking to everyone about their experiences has been very valuable, I believe a professional perspective on these matters is also essential. That's where Dr. Ann comes in.
Just give us a clap, please.
Me? That's not it. I actually didn't start really speaking out about the whole issue of LGBTQ and particularly gender dysphoria until about 2016. So since then, I've probably spent, well, my husband and I have probably spent close to $300,000 of our own money in just trying to educate people
And so I've written several books and, of course, writing and publishing. And then I've given many, many copies away because my focus is how can I reach people to help them understand what is happening to our children. My passion is for our children. In my practice, I saw primarily adult survivors of childhood sexual abuse. So I dealt with complex trauma, chronic sexual abuse through childhood. That was kind of my area of expertise. I loved my work. I loved my clients. But in 2019, I realized I couldn't keep advocating for our children, writing, and having a private practice at the same time. So I retired from private practice so I can commit to this full time. With cross-sex identification, and I prefer to use that term rather than transgender, because transgender is not a medical term, it's a political term actually. So cross-sex identification, it wasn't an issue that I dealt primarily with as I talked about what I did with trauma, but I was involved with a few individuals, children, that were gender distressed. They would have categorized as gender dysphoric. I did not diagnose. I chose not to. I just chose to treat the issue, not the symptoms, but the underlying issues of trauma. Because with these children, as with all who have been traumatized, there are underlying issues. And so what are those issues, and how do we help that individual deal with the underlying trauma that's related? And if we can go to that root and help them process and help them come to a place of recognizing what's happened to them in their lives and how do they then learn to accept the hard parts of that and then to begin to heal. When you stand up for truth, I think truth has become one of these things that we have become selective in Canada about what kind of truth, if you want to call it that, we listen to. Any unqualified person should be suggesting to a child, and a child should not be diagnosing themselves, because that's what we see happening. The children simply say, I must be born in the wrong body, I believe I'm a girl, I'm not a boy, or vice versa. And everyone is supposed to just accept that as truth. And that's what I was talking about earlier. Truth and reality aren't lining up for these children and for many that are hearing the stories of these children. All we're allowed to do as therapists is to affirm the child's delusions, because it is delusion. It is unrealistic to believe that you can actually become the opposite sex. Psychotherapy for these children has been outlawed in Canada. There is only one way to treat gender dysphoric children, according to the Canadian Psychological Association and the medical associations within Canada, and that is to affirm their ideas, their thoughts, and I would say affirm their delusions. Most of these children that are transitioning, and this time and place in our culture, most of them have just bought into the suggestions. They have some distress and gender dysphoria, but how much of that is actually caused by the culture itself and the education system? Unfortunately, the individual psychologists, psychiatrists, psychotherapists have caved under great political pressure from their organizations, because it has become the law. You have to treat with affirmation therapy. You can't do anything else but tell the children they're absolutely right about what they think and believe. We're not treating children, we're just going along with their ideas. And when did we ever do that? When did we ever do that as therapists? We need to speak truth to families. And now we're being told we have to lie to them.
Traveling to Canada to film this documentary has been a profound experience. What stood out the most was how happy people were to find someone willing to listen to them, someone willing to tell their story. Hearing what all these brave women are going through, while simply trying to be themselves or look out for their children, was eye-opening and at times heartbreaking. But as I got to know them, I knew that their stories were worth telling.